Welcome to Diversity Conversations, where we engage in thought-provoking dialogue to identify leadership solutions to today's most challenging conflicts. Stream live each week, Saturday 9:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. Hosted by Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Strategist and CEOs Eric Ellis and Tommie Lewis. Join us and add your voice to this engaging diversity conversation.
Good morning, Greater Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky, the United States, and the world. I am Tommie Lewis, President and CEO of Make It Plain Consulting. It's a pleasure to be with you. And as you notice, my friend and my brother, Eric Ellis, is not with us this morning. He is on assignment, but we want to shout out Eric for all the work that he continues to do for his clients and our community at large across the country. I would also like to personally thank Eric at times when I'm unable to be a part of the show. He either does the show very dynamically by himself or he has a guest. I am not that dynamic. So anytime that we have to do the show or I have to do the show by myself, I am so honored to have a guest. But before we bring up our special guest today, a good friend of mine, and you're going to enjoy the conversation this morning, community, we would like to remind you to like and hit that like button and subscribe. We want to keep you posted, keep you updated on diversity conversations. And remember, diversity conversations is about having unique and different conversations. That's all it is. Talking to different people from different backgrounds, different experiences, different expertise, etc. And so as we have these communications, these dialogues, these conversations with different people, we begin to build in our own toolbox of references and perspectives. So let's start to minimize our negative implicit biases with people that we haven't had conversations with. Let's talk. Let's chat. Let's have a conversation. Speaking of conversations, wanted to share just a little bit about a conversation that I had this week. And the conversation was not in person. It was not over the telephone verbal. It was an email conversation. So I have reached out to a number of folks to invite them to send their young person, their middle school students, to an organization called the Illuminate Leadership Conference. It's a week-long conference held at a local university, and it's designed for 7th, 8th, and 9th graders. And over the course of a week, food, private coach transportation to meet with executives with top industry businesses across this region. They will also get involved with, evening social events, pool parties, all this good stuff. It has been fantastic for about 7 years. I reached out to some of the alumni of previous years, students who participated in the Illuminate Leadership Conference some 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, and I reached out to them. More so, I reached out to their parents. I reached out to the parents to say, thank you for allowing your young child at the time to participate in this conference. But if you know any other young people or parents of young people, have them register to the Illuminate Leadership Conference this summer. So I emailed the parents, and it's only about 30 parents from this particular year, 2021, 2022. And one of the parents' children, a former Illuminate student, has a name that's unisex. In other words, it can be a male name if there's a such thing, and it could be a female name if there's a such thing. And so in my haste in reaching out to the parent, I mistakenly identified their gender incorrectly. In other words, I said, well, if you would have her student reach out to me. And the parent sent me a brief email. Correction. She is a he, has always been a he, and will forever be a he. I really didn't know how to receive that, but my days are so busy that I don't get emotionally hijacked over many things. So I just responded quickly. My apologies. It was a typo on my end. If you can have her, give me a call. That's what I said in the email. I sent it. And the parent said, "Are you an idiot? Are you stupid?" This is in the email. "You must be a slow learner. My child is a he, not a she, not a her. I don't know what you're trying to do, but he is a he. In fact, never email me again because you are an idiot." Now, this is from a parent of a student that has gone through the Illuminate Leadership Institute and Conference. And in this institute and conference, we work with our young people in social and emotional learning. We work with our young people with understanding problem solving and critical thinking, relationship management, communication styles, even self-awareness and the sense of belonging. I know this by way of the curriculum for the students, and I'm thinking, first, my bad. I did say her twice. My bad. But the response that I'm getting in the email, I don't think it's me. I don't think it's the student. In this case, I really believe it's the parent. So my response was, "I appreciate your energy and your churlishness. I will not email you again." Now, before we bring up our guest, I would have to say to you, community, and thank you, Roger, for joining every morning. I felt some type of way, right? And that's why my response was as it was, that last one. Thank you for your energy and your churlishness. Because at this point, if you think I'm an idiot, you will have to go look up the word churlishness. Don't get it twisted. I've learned the power of intellect over the years. And sometimes, as my mother would do, my late mother, Carol Lewis, who was a very intelligent, smart, witty woman, she would use words that would cut you up and you had no idea that you were slashed and dashed, diced and sliced. The power of words. And so I think that I don't think, I know that I am incredibly excited today because the person we're going to bring to the front page, the front stage, is someone that I immensely respect, a scholar, an activist, a father, a husband, a friend, a community leader. And I've learned so much by simply listening to Mr. Paul James. And I'm excited to bring Paul here. Community, you're going to be excited. And community, do what you do and chime in throughout the course of our conversation. You always do. But I want to bring forth Brother Paul James to the stage. Welcome. Good morning.
Thank you. So good to be here. And so good to hear that story, man. I can just sit here and be silent and let you continue, but keep going.
Indeed, Paul, it was something else. And this was actually Thursday.
Oh, wow.
That has happened. And, I'm still unpacking it a little bit.
Yeah.
But I what I've learned though is, and I did mean what I said by, I appreciate the energy,
Yeah.
right? Whatever the energy was, it could have been positive or, negative, maladaptive, all that good stuff. But I believe that God continues to work on me almost every day, right? And when
Yes.
I say, I've arrived with my emotional intelligence, I've arrived with my steadfastness, I've arrived with my calmness, there's always a little test to say, okay, let's see if you are doing what you are saying,
Yeah.
right? And,
Yeah.
and so,
Yeah.
again, I was so excited to have you on the show.
Absolutely.
And then again, thank you for listening to that story.
Hey, man, let me just say this,
Yep.
because my interpretation is this is going to be organic.
Yep.
Before we do some introductions here, that story resonates with me because I think that what it means to be human
Oh.
means that you allow me to make mistakes. It means
Amen.
that you allow me to not come to the table perfect, whatever the metaphorical table is.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we have to do a better job of in terms of in this human space is giving human beings a latitude to be right and wrong, and the correctedness around that based on love and accountability.
Okay.
I think that's critically important. So you sharing that story to this audience, in my opinion, displays a sense of transparency and honesty, because at the end of the day, my phrase is, I'm still learning.
Yes, sir.
And so if that's the case, it doesn't matter how long we've been on this field of humanness, mistakes are coming. But my posture and phenomenal people like you is, okay, I'm still learning.
Mhm.
And but that has to be rooted in reciprocity.
Yes, sir. Okay.
It has to be rooted in reciprocity. So I just wanted to honor you in terms of offering that story, because it's a teachable moment in that you don't have to share it.
Yeah. So let's keep going down this path, man. We'll get to the introduction. We're already in it.
Sure.
So for folks like me and you and others who are always in the process of learning,
Yeah.
and in humanity,
Sure.
right? How might we be able to internally learn and recognize that this is a learnable or teachable moment,
Yeah.
right? And at the same time, possibly share this with the other person or the other party such that the learning continues, right? So I say, I'm sorry, and then there's some other dialogue, and I'm in the learning process. But how do we continue the conversation to continue to learn with the other person or from the other person?
So Tommie, you may find this to be interesting or odd. I don't know how you're going to take this, but these days, definitely in the public space, I am very much known to ask people before the conversation begins, do I have your permission to fail?
Yes, sir.
Because if I have your permission to fail, I may use a wrong word. You may misinterpret my body posture. Our backgrounds may be starkly different. We could speak different languages. We could have different understandings, different social economic backgrounds. But if you allow me to fail in dialogue, in interaction, then it's not about the got you moments.
Yeah.
I have learned over the past nearly 30 years of doing this work, there are more than enough people doing this work or in these spaces of belonging, inclusion, equity, and stuff, who are really invested in got you moments. We can't thrive. We can survive in that setting, but
Right.
we can't thrive if you're looking for me to make the mistake and you're not willing to self-guide me in terms of understanding your humanity, your points of diversity, your points of intercultural awareness, etc.
Yeah.
And so to me, that's the beginning of the learning process. Can we fail in this conversation, or do we have to show up perfect? Which we know nothing is perfect. No one is perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. The other thing I'll say this in terms of learning, what I have also found, my friend, is that the best learning I've been a part of is people who show up to learn with no agenda.
Yes, sir.
When agendas are present,
Yes, sir.
Biases are more likely to show up.
Uh-huh.
Implicit associations are more likely to show up. All these things that get in the way. But when we're talking about learning, it's also relearning.
Yeah.
My background is in African world history.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much as a student of that genre of learning, growing up in America, I've had to relearn.
Yes, sir.
And that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
If you show me, I'll conclude by saying this. Show me a person whose mind is made up completely, and I'll show you a person who more than likely who's engaging in got you moments.
Yeah.
Show me a person with an open mind, with their beliefs intact,
mm-hmm.
with their integrity intact, with an open mind. And it doesn't matter what the field of engagement is, we're gonna move some mountains together.
Yeah. 30 years plus, Paul, in this work, right? Bringing value to communities, institutions of higher learning,
Yes,
corporations,
yes.
etc., in different ways. So meeting people where they are, really leading them towards some higher learning or higher experience, etc.
Yeah.
30 years plus.
Yeah.
We'll jump into that in just a moment, but share a little bit more about before the 30 plus years, give or take, right? Who are you, and what were some of your experiences to get you to the, all right, I'm in the work moment?
Well, I'm a son of Wichita, Kansas. I'm from the Midwest, born and raised. My mom is one of 14. I'm proud of the fact that she had 2 children, me and my sister. I was raised in an extended family, came of age in the 70s and 80s. Yeah. Very proud of that era. At the end of the day, people may not see it in me, but I'm a hip hop kid.
Yes, sir.
A classical hip hop kid. Stetson Sonic, Eric B. and Rakim, KRS-One. You know what I'm saying? So I'm from that era, etc. I grew up in a working class family, like many Black boys in the 70s, and I'm not ashamed to say this. No father, nowhere around at any time. So I grew up fatherless, and didn't really understand how critical that was until my own son came along when I was in my late 20s. Okay. But that whole narrative gripped me. But then I had an opportunity to participate in Wichita's version of a rite of passage program around knowledge of self. And I can say that process in my 20s woke me up. And that's ultimately the man that you see today. And I'm proud of that. Went to Wichita State ultimately and got a degree in English and ethnic studies. Went to Xavier, worked at Wichita State for several years. I'm a trio. Originally, I started off in trio programs.
Yes, sir.
And so those programs are very near and dear to my heart. Talent Search, Upward Bound, et cetera, et cetera. So cut my teeth in Office of Admissions work at Wichita State as well. Left there, Tommie, and had an opportunity to leave Kansas in my 20s and go all the way out to Oregon State University in the Pacific Northwest. and helped Oregon State University in the late 90s do some wonderful work around student recruitment and student retention in the Portland, Oregon area and the Eugene, Oregon area. Left there, and this is how I arrived at Xavier in Cincinnati.
Indeed.
Yes, sir. Spent 8 wonderful years at Xavier University in the Multicultural Affairs Department, working with Midwest students around student retention, academic excellence, et cetera, et cetera. Built a wonderful program there. Left there and became the chief diversity officer of a small private school outside of Cleveland called Baldwin Wallace University. It was Baldwin Wallace College then, now it's Baldwin Wallace University. Left there in 2011 and found myself at Duke University for the next 9 years, working across Duke Health and the university setting, but doing diversity at more of an executive level, similar to like I had did it at Baldwin Wallace. Now, all that said, I got married at 23 years old.
Yes, sir.
So I'm doing look at your face. So I'm doing all this. I'm doing all this, sir, and I got married very young, 23. 35 years later, I'm still with that woman.
Come on.
So I give you a picture of the professional Paul James and the knowledge of self Paul James, but I'd be remiss if I didn't say that I also became committed in terms of relationship formation very early in life, and it survived. And so that's another proud point. But I would also like to say this, man, I could say a lot more about my background, people I've met, accolades that I've received, places that I've been across the planet. But at the end of the day, Tommie, we're all lifing.
Yeah.
We're all trying to make sense and answer the question that the African asked thousands of years ago, and that is, what does it mean to be human? What does it mean to belong? How do we create collaborative networks? How do we engage in a sense of genuineness, a sense of respect? How do we speak truth to power? How do we engage in accountability? And more importantly, how do we lead with a smile and not a growl?
Yeah.
And I don't mean to say that in a way that I'm rhyming, but I'm just being very real in terms of my own journey. People, what I've noticed across cultures, across climates, across land masses, people are looking for authenticity and integrity in spite of culture. And we are duty bound to seek a level of genuineness across our diversities, across our intercultural awareness frameworks, across our abilities to be entrenched in our own knowledge while extending the olive branch to people who are outside of those knowledge branches. So that's a little bit about my background academically, professionally, and then my wife, and then my son who's 23, my mother, and my extended family, etc.
Yeah. So I want to stay with you from your family perspective just for a moment. Still learning. Paul, I will assume that, again, married at 23, still married today, 35 plus years. There's a lot of growing in that space with your wife, your better half, as I'm calling it.
Sure.
And then having a son. Could you share a little bit about how your wife and or your son has helped you learn about you or anything else?
Well, let me just say, first of all, can you imagine being a 23-year-old knucklehead getting married?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not trying to be facetious here. I'm trying to show a little humor. Who does that?
Yeah.
And so it survived. What my wife taught me is commitment. And that commitment can be translated to career, to community, to people. Okay? But the
Wow.
basis of that is commitment. So she taught me that. You know, being with somebody that long is more than a journey because it's ups, it's downs, it's highs and lows.
Mm-hmm.
I've been with my wife for longer than I was with my mother. So we've seen deaths on her side, my side. We were parents later in life. We were married over 10 years before our son came along.
Yes.
So if you do the math on that, we had a foundation before parenthood. And then you become a parent, and then you have to understand all over again what you don't know.
Yes, sir.
Because children, in spite of my deep intellectual tradition, children have a way of humbling you like no other.
No other. Come on.
Particularly when you are 23 years old and your framework for belonging and community is different.
Oh, wow.
Your framework is different in terms of the world. My son has only known a world of social media. He's only known a world of technology. My son is thoroughly enthralled in hip hop in a different way than dad is. My son thinks about relationships very differently. My son was a COVID baby. When he was in high school, we were struck by COVID.
Yes.
So when you ask me the impact of family, impact of spouse, fatherhood, and I lost my mom nearly 8 years ago. Look, man, that's what I'm saying. When I'm talking about lifing, all these things are coming at us on a daily basis. How do we stand tall?
Mm-hmm.
How do we engage in what I call the V word, and that's vulnerability?
Yes, sir.
As we take losses and wins, how do we engage in vulnerability? This is the other reason why I like how you started off this conversation about the experience that you had with the parent. You led with vulnerability. You're teaching out. You're teaching up and down and across. That's important, Tommie. So my personal life has taught me commitment and vulnerability and being in a space of constantly relearning.
Paul, I do want to connect your scholarship with your profession and being the president and chief people strategist.
Yes.
So you and I both know and are very familiar with the transatlantic slave trade.
Yes.
We know about the dehumanization of peoples, not only on the continent of Africa, but in the diaspora, all those other countries and cultures around the world.
Sure.
Where people and human beings were regulated to chattel.
Oh, sure.
Right? To property.
Yeah.
And so that dehumanization was not just physical, but it was through a lot of other things: spiritual dehumanization, a psychological dehumanization, etc. Fast forward to today, where I think there are people who may not be quote unquote in bondage or enslaved, but they're still subjugated to this dehumanization from another person or group of people, right? So we go back 500 to 1,000 years plus to modern day, where people, Paul, we ain't acting right, man. We're wilding out, and it can get scary for many, or if not most. But those who are, that are perpetrating the fraud, it's kind of the old playbook, the 500 to 1,000 plus year playbook. I would like you to talk with us, man. First, what the heck is going on now, and how can people maintain their humanity with working with people who might be diametrically opposed to their own humanity?
Wow. Well, what you just asked me may be a 2-part or 3-part series.
Yes, sir.
Tommie, I'll say this, the missing link, and I'm quoting Dr. John Henry Clark and other grand scholars, the missing link in world history, thinking about Arturo Schomburg as well now, is in fact Black history. And although you didn't ask me today to show up and talk about Black history necessarily, if I go back to Lighthouse Strategy Consulting, one of the primary reasons why I launched Lighthouse Strategy Consulting while at Duke and chose to strike out on my own was this. What was nagging at me was the word and spirit of the Honorable Booker T. Washington. Now listen to me, because I'm going to take this back to your question.
Yes, sir.
So what was nagging me for years in higher education, Paul, you have all this knowledge. You've worked across the country helping institutions build programs, and rightfully so. Now, Booker's telling me this. In my mind, what have you built for yourself? Now, Booker, in my imagination, is having this conversation with me, as he should, because he left us Tuskegee Institute, which is now Tuskegee University.
Yeah.
So he left us bricks and mortar. Many of our leaders leave us with ideas in the absence of leaving us buildings for those ideas. Not just Booker did this. I call on the spirit of Mary McLeod Bethune, who left us what is now Bethune-Cookman College, Bethune-Cookman University, I think in Florida.
Yeah.
Booker is not the only one who did this, but I'm saying to you, I ultimately launched my own consulting firm because I heard the echo of the ancestors saying, what have you created in the process of helping these organizations and institutions build their platform? So I started Lighthouse Strategy Consulting, and that brand has allowed me to work across multiple major brands, not just in the United States, but across the planet. Now, all that changed. I'm coming up to this spirit now of where we at now. And I don't mind being transparent when I say this to your audience. Last March 2025, new administration comes into office. I start losing major contracts. It's a different political wind. It's a different process. Organizational management, which I'm an expert in as well, organizational psychology, companies and institutions coming out of the George Floyd had propped that work up. Now it's decimated.
Yes.
Right? So you're looking at, your audience is listening to one of the casualties of what it means to vote a particular way in terms of how it impacts small business. It's like your small business and my small business. This is very real.
Yeah.
This is very tangible because I've lost dollars and cents over this.
Yeah.
Now, I'll conclude by saying this. What's going on and what's happening? Man, Marvin Gaye asked us that question 35, 40 years ago. Did he not ask us what was going on?
Yes, sir.
It's his most pivotal song to the world.
Yep.
What's going on?
What's going on?
So what's going on, in my opinion, is doubling down on nastiness, a sense of rudeness, name calling, disrespect, a lack of awareness, the inability to read a room, the inability to be kind to people in spite of those differences. the inability to understand that we are, for me to win, I don't have to put you through a system of pain.
Right.
Now, one can argue this has always been the United States of America for people like you and me, whose ancestors came through that transatlantic process that you mentioned, that which we call chattel slavery. I do want to add a historical note here of reference for your audience, because this is very important. Long before the European internationalized slavery on the west coast of Africa, the Arab on the east coast of Africa institutionalized slavery on the mother continent.
Yes, sir.
So we went through a double whammy process. The Arab slave trade, and then the European transatlantic chattel slave trade that most of us talk about today. We must recognize both of them for the global impact and damage that it has had, not just on the mind of African people, but the world in terms of how we look at history, economics, politics, labor, law, education, entertainment, etc.
This is incredible. And I say this because, as we may know, in today's time, there have been intentional efforts to remove history, rewrite history, or even gaslight those who had experienced history to say, what you experienced did not happen.
Yes.
In fact, I am going to tell you what happened to you so regularly that you will believe it, right? That psychological attack, right? And so now with the psychological attack on our collective historical biography, we then, I think, lean to diminishing our understanding and awareness of self. We may even diminish our capacity and capability,
absolutely,
of understanding what's real, not. Keep going here,
so
Paul, with that sentiment.
So let me riff a little bit here for you. So there's a book that your audience must read or have in their library. It's by Dr. Joy DeGruy. You've probably heard of it. Post-traumatic slave syndrome.
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's a must-have book in the library of everyone, but particularly those people of color who want to know how the impact of bondage still rests with us today in terms of our mind, our spirit, our body, our relationship formations, etc. Dr. DeGruy writes what I call the most important book in that space. You know, the first time I went to Africa, I'll be honest with you, there was some level of pain, because imagine going somewhere, you look like everybody, but you don't have a name like theirs.
Yeah.
You walk like them, but you don't have a tradition like theirs.
Yeah.
You believe in a higher being, but you don't call out to that higher being in an ancestral way. Well, that's because if you're born in the diaspora, all that was taken away from you.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to have too much of a Malcolm X moment here, but Malcolm said it beautifully, 40, 50 years ago. They took our name, language, and religion, and they made us into something else.
Yeah.
And so what we have been concerned about, Tommie, too long, I'm going to go back to Dr. John Henry Clarke. as an African people in the diaspora, we have been concerned too long with where those ships dropped us off rather than where those ships picked us up.
Yes, sir.
Now, why is that important? Because you find Black people in the diaspora saying, I'm a Dominican, I'm a Puerto Rican, I'm an American, I'm a Colombian, and all that's true. That's true. That's true. But the moment we say, okay, I'm all that, and now where do I come from? Who am I?
Yes, sir.
And how do I allow that to be a beacon for me in terms of how I interact in the world today? Knowledge of self, Tommie, and to the audience, in my opinion, it's a journey, not a destination. Yep. Because there's so much that we have to continue to uncover. Now, this is not just about African peoples in the world.
Right.
This is all people in the world who've been colonized, who've been dominated, who've been exploited, who've been held captive. So this just isn't the space for Black people on the planet to engage in. All people who have been misused and maneuvered across the planet with the ill fate must do whatever it takes to reclaim. This just in the space of race and ethnicity.
Right, right.
This is also how we unpack patriarchy.
Yes, sir.
And it's also, which means how we deal across the gender spectrum, how we deal across the sexual identity, expression spectrums. It's how we deal across the social economics and the lack of wealth and how wealth has been built over the last 5 to 1,000 years.
Come on now, Doc.
It's how we think about access to property and who has access to property. I want to close this segment out by sharing a story with you and your audience, because I believe storytelling is where it's at.
Yeah.
We have to give people an opportunity to share their stories.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna make this less than a minute. When I was at Oregon State, I had an opportunity to host a book club discussion. And the purpose of this book club was to facilitate a conversation with a group of elderly white women. Now, this is around 1998. This story gets back to what I call socioeconomic impact and the legacy of privilege. Legacy of privilege. So it's a Saturday morning. I facilitate the conversation. The average age in that room was probably 75 or 80. So right there, I'm out of my age range. I'm in my late 20s. So I'm getting ready to leave, Tommie, and a woman walks over to me and she says to me, "Young man, I owe you an apology." I said, "No, you don't owe me an apology. I'm sort of confused. What's going on?" She looked at me and said, "Yeah, no, I owe you an apology." And she said, I'm a widow now. My husband is long gone. Now, I want the audience to understand we're talking about Oregon here. When I tell you this, this is not Mississippi. This is Oregon. She said, "I owe you an apology. I have something that's been on my mind and lurking in my shadows for decades." I said, "Ma'am, I'm becoming very uncomfortable now. I don't know you. We've just had a wonderful discussion." I said, "What's going on?" She says, and she pulled me in closer to her. Complete stranger. She said, "When my husband and I bought our first home, we signed a clause. And in that clause, we would not, if we ever sold our house, we would not sell it to a Negro." Structural racism. Locking people out of wealth or the ability to build wealth. So I'm looking at a woman standing in front of me in her 70s, trying to make amends with a total stranger because she and her husband signed a covenant that they wouldn't ever sell their home to somebody who look like me.
Mm.
So for people who are listening who think racism and classism and all these isms are a figment of the imagination, I want your audience to know there are still people living today in 2026 who are in their 90s and close to 100 who have family stories,
Yeah.
who have family memorabilia that take us back to a time of the ultimate sense of male privilege, racial privilege, and social economic privilege. And they are still benefiting today.
Yes. At the highest level?
At the highest level. Look, man, we had to have movements to bring women into the fold. We had to have movements to bring cross-racial groups into the fold.
Yeah.
We had to have people like James Baldwin and Bayard Rustin who didn't mind sharing their sexual identities and orientation. We had to have those people who come along and speak to their existence and bring them into the fold. We've had to have people who are sight impaired, hearing impaired, people that are unfortunately through birth or circumstance, people that are in wheelchairs, people who are differently abled to speak to their existence and bring them into the fold. Now, I'm not a political man, but I will say this. The tent is big for everyone. We don't built for everyone. We don't have to be nasty and lock people out.
Yeah.
We don't have to be ugly. Now, I want to go back to something, Tommie, that's important because I must say this as well. The other beautiful thing about Mary McLeod Bethune and Booker T. Washington is they understood in this participatory democracy that we have, you have to have something of your own.
Yes.
And what's unfortunate today with so many marginalized groups, as we fought for entry into spaces where we were traditionally locked out, we have forgot how to build and do for ourselves in this participatory democracy based on collectivism.
Yes, sir.
And so when we talk about the plight of Black people, of brown people, of Native peoples, we've got to understand, yes, there's racism, classism, and sexism, but we've got to return to those mother principles of doing for self as we also seek to make these United States and this world a more perfect union and process for everybody.
Paul, I was tracking you from the start to now and look forward to continuing a direct conversation or even indirect conversation going forward. And what I mean by indirect conversation is, as I and our audience, our community are listening to this conversation, involved in this conversation, that can we then move into our next conversation with some insight, right? Insight. And what do I mean by that? That when you were sharing your story, when you were sharing the lesson, there was one word that kept coming into my mind and my spirit. It consistently rushed into my mind.
Okay.
People.
Okay.
We're all people.
Yeah.
And then I looked again at your title and responsibility, Chief People Strategist.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to throw it back to you in just a moment. But before I do, I want to remind the community. Community, you may have heard Mr. Paul James and I talking about, in one way, shape, or form, race, ethnicity, gender identity, sexual orientation, etc. If there was any word that triggered you, I would invite you to unpack that internally. Why? Why did the word race trigger you? Why did the word or words sexual orientation trigger you?
Yes, sir.
It's not the conversation that Mr. Paul James and I are having that triggered you. It was that word that was internalized by yourself. The question is why? And the other follow-up question is, will that triggering prevent you from continuing a conversation? Right?
Yes.
So I want us in these diversity conversations, in these unique and different conversations, to reduce our triggering mechanism and lean into the understanding mechanism, understanding and awareness of self, understanding and awareness of others, because we are all people. I see that as one of many strategies to continue the conversation, the dialogue, right? The hate and harm that we are experiencing from, for some people or some sects in some areas, I really believe, Paul, that the mindset and philosophy of either superiority or kind of, I'm going to say it, some of us may not have been spanked as a child to be redirected.
Uh-huh.
And so we didn't get spanked as a child, and everything that we said we want, we got, built a psychology of ultimate privilege.
Yeah.
That this world is mine.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that then psychologically moves the person from the humane people perspective to the God-like or God perspective. And that's where we can get in trouble, my friend, when we as people think we are God, right? And those who are God-fearing, we back up from that. Hold on, let that wrath come down and miss me, right? That's something that I'm grappling with as I work with people as you do. I have experiences like you, where some senior 70, 80, 90 years old is coming into some space.
Yeah.
And I'm that person that they can, i.e. apologize to. But I want to turn it to you, as we, begin to, wrap up for this episode, wrap up the conversation. Sure. We have some time here, but hey, man, in the work of people strategy, what are you doing? What are you seeing that needs to be done such that organizations, people, and processes come back together again?
So what I am seeing as a people strategist, particularly as I work on the C-suite and executive levels, is, and I want the audience to listen to this very carefully. 90% of the people that I've worked with who are doing well believe that they got there through merit. The meritocracy trap.
Come on, brother.
Now, that's a selfish way to rise, because no one rises without any help, assistance, sponsoring, and mentorship. Now, let me put this in a cultural paradigm. You've heard of the African philosophy, Ubuntu.
Yes, sir.
I am because we are, and we are because I am. See, the core of that is we and not I. Mm-hmm. When we abandon the spirit of collectivism, we allow people to rise in this society, in the workspace, and think that they have gotten there because they worked harder. Their test scores was better. They spent more time in the library, not realizing that in some cases their last name meant something better.
Yes, sir.
Their zip code said something different. They have the right college brand on their resume or on their Vita. All these things and many other things go into how people rise. So when you ask me what I'm seeing, that it's sometimes hard to reverse in people, particularly in the workspace, is yes, we rise through hard work, sheer determination, and commitment. But we also rise because people come along and say, Tommie, I want to mentor you. Tommie, I want to give you this opportunity.
Yeah.
Jeff, I want to help you. Pam, I want to help you. Renee, I want to help you. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about writing? Have you thought about going to graduate school? Have you thought about whatever?
Yeah.
Those better angels that come along and help us get to the next level. Now, the person who's sitting somewhere in an office or in a meeting who think that they worked harder, it's easy for them to dismiss other people and say, well, you got here because of quotas.
Yeah.
Affirmative action, privilege, etc., etc. No. So that's a short answer, a short way of me saying I'm working against a lot of people who have bought into the meritocracy myth, not understanding that privilege systems are very real. I've worked with departments over the years, and the schools will remain nameless, where 90% of the department were men. 90% of the department were men.
Wow.
You telling me that there's nobody who self-identifies as female that can do these roles?
Right.
No, that's false. Your hiring practices, your opportunity analysis is such that you keep making the same mistake based on comfortability and privilege. So I'm seeing a way in which, because I know we're running short of time here, sir, and I'll just conclude by saying this. I'm trying to help people dismantle decades and decades of privilege systems and bring people to the awareness of how that impacts who we promote, who we hire, who we let go, who we engage in opportunity, who we see as worthy, who we see as unworthy, who we see as comfortable, or those who make us uncomfortable.
Yes, sir. We may be familiar with a proverb, an African proverb, unknown author. A person convinced against their will is of the same opinion still. A person convinced against their will is of the same opinion still.
Yeah.
So if any of us are forced or convinced to do something, to think a certain way, as seasoned people, seasoned professionals, from the executive suite to the individual contributor,
Absolutely.
we may smile, nod our head in agreement. We may even shake your hand, give you a hug, give you a kiss on the cheek, and then turn around as we're leaving the space and say, I'm never going to change, and I'm never going to do that. And so every time you see me, hey, Brother Tommie, how is it? Paul, our sessions are phenomenal. I'm learning an awful lot about how I should handle them, right? And so I'm developing new skills and techniques on how to make them adjust, make them get better, or get rid of them. And you say, well, I appreciate the feedback. In our sessions, we haven't actually talked about them. We've talked about you, Tommie. Yeah, I know you've been talking about me, but I've heard how to use what you're sharing with me to manage them.
Yeah.
And then you triple down, Paul. You say, Tommie, we're not talking about them or they. We're talking about you. And without me telling you, Paul, I've told you that I am not interested in changing me.
Good point, Tommie.
I'm not interested.
Yes.
Right? What you're providing me is good information, good tools, techniques for me to change other people, because I am convinced against my will, and you're trying to convince me or share with me that I need to change and adjust to learn.
Right.
And my mindset is, I don't need to learn anything new, because the world that I've created is working for me. And if it stops working for me, then I might have a plan to suppress others by way of career advancement, entry into the organization. Or
Yes, sir.
I may even, I won't say this publicly, but I might even talk negatively about certain people such that I can remain in my role, position, and responsibility. Because I only have 4 more years, Paul, and I'm going to sunset this career.
Good point.
So as we are thinking about throughout this conversation, I'm hearing self-empowerment. I'm hearing some tools and techniques and maybe even some resources that we can tap into, that we can study and learn from. I'm learning that you, as a subject matter expert, are a resource community to reach out to understand and to strategize around people, processes, and cultures. So as we close out today, 2 things. One, Paul, I do want to give you the opportunity to share how might people get in touch with you.
Okay.
Right? And then that could be first or second. The other is, if you can share some words of hope, encouragement, or inspiration for us, that it's not all gloom and doom, but there is a future ahead of all of us that we can positively prepare for.
Well, let me just say real quickly, anybody can get in contact with me via email, paul@lighthousestrategist.com. And for some reason, I don't know if it's my system or what, but I'm unable to participate in the chat here. It's blocked. And I don't know why that is. But anyway, I'm trying now. Anyway, Paul, in the interest of time, paul@lighthousestrategist.com. You can email me there and follow up. Maybe you can provide that to your audience once I'm done. I'd appreciate that. But here's one way that I think we may move forward. And I want to end with a compliment, because so often we leave people with a sense of ambiguity unnecessarily. The compliment is, Tommie, you have a beautiful way of framing.
Oh, man.
And I'm taking away from this, my gosh, he's an expert on framing. See, half the battle is people don't know what frame they're in.
Yes, sir.
So I want to acknowledge publicly that your ability to frame a conversation is just absolutely wonderful. And I honor and respect you for that. Second, I would like to say this. We must walk in the spirit of knowing and not knowing. And the hope is that people who are listening realize that not knowing is a strength and not a weakness. The area of discovery is so important. And so I leave your community, your listeners, with this spirit of, don't be afraid to not know, because in not knowing, we dare to both disagree and understand how to create paths of humanness and understanding and some level of righteousness.
Well said. Community, our time is here again. As promised and as delivered, Mr. Paul James, dear friend of mine for a couple of decades here, believe it or not, has inspired me once again. I am always inspired by intellectual discourse, intellectual conversation, spiritual conversation. Community, you know us for the last 8 years, diversity conversations. These are the conversations that we enjoy. And so as we depart for the day, I do want to invite our community. I would like to invite Paul James and his robust community of colleagues, friends, peers, and students as well. Because we were talking about earlier that Paul James has touched students many, many years ago and are still in contact with students. And I too would like to thank my mentors that educated me at Tennessee State University in Nashville. And I had the opportunity to engage with Dr. Amiri Yassin El Hadid yesterday. Again, he's in his 80s.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
And he simply picked up the lecture from 30 plus years ago that scholarship has no time bound.
Exactly.
Yes, scholarship.
Exactly.
So again, thank you, Paul James, for joining us this morning. We want to invite our community to come back next week, as we always are together, 9:30 to 10:30 Eastern, wherever the time frame is where you are across the globe. And thank you for joining us this week on another episode of Diversity Conversations. Take care.